English 11 semester 1 for part of it, and then English 11 semester 2 for the other part. You're welcome to stay for both. If you have to run, I understand that too, but I want to make sure that you get any questions that you have for me. So please, like I said, at any point, just go ahead and shoot me a message letting me know if you have questions. The other thing, I am recording this, just so you know. If you aren't comfortable talking or recording, you don't have to, but it's there, so that's good. We are focusing today on assignments 421 from English 11 semester 1 and assignments 452 excuse me, from English 11 semester 2. So we'll be looking at those two different things today, which are both more like vocabulary, grammar type of things than the essays themselves, which I've focused on the last a few sessions. So we're going to focus on these today. The essential questions that we're going to be looking at are, what is the purpose of figurative language? What effect does connotation have on the word choice when we're writing? And how do you determine different types of sentences? I forgot to mention, I'm sorry, I don't know if I did or not, that my name is Leslie Farrington. My email is right there, so you're more than welcome to always email me. Whether you have me or not, doesn't matter. You can shoot me an email with questions about English. And then if you want to chat me, you can just type in my name and you can chat me that way. Usually I am on my computer in the evenings. I teach in a brick and mortar school during the day, so I am more of an evening person as far as being on the computer, doing grading and responding to chats. So that is a good way to get a hold of me. And if you need to get a hold of me during the day, you can always email me. Is probably a better bet, getting a hold of me on my lunch break or something like that. So we already talked about essential questions. Excuse me. Looking at the first assignment is English 11 semester 1, and this is the one about figurative language and connotation. So the figurative language, we're gonna do a little prezi here about it, and there you go. If anybody wants the links to the prezis that we're using today, just like I said, let me know and I can drop them in the chat box for you, so it's a little easier. You can just click those links. Oops. Sorry. Okay, so the figurative language, we're going to start out with alliteration. So alliteration is something that you're going to notice a lot in the clip we're going to watch, and I want you to, you're going to be able to catch it, I think, pretty easily, but you're just going to be paying attention to the words that they're using in this clip.
I can assure you I mean you no harm.
Who are you?
Who is but the form following the function of what, and what I am is a man in a mask.
Oh, I can see that.
Of course you can. I'm not questioning your powers of observation. I'm merely remarking upon the paradox of asking a masked man who he is.
Oh, right.
But on this most auspicious of nights, permit me then, in lieu of the more commonplace sobriquet, to suggest the character of this persona. Voila! In view, a humble vaudevillian veteran, cast vicariously as both victim and villain by the vicissitudes of fate. This visage, no mere veneer of vanity, is a vestige of the vox populi, now vacant, vanished. However, this valorous visitation of a bygone vexation stands vivified, and has vowed to prevent the venal and virulent vermin vanguarding vice and vouchsafing the violent, gracious violation. The only verdict is vengeance. And elders are votive in vain, for the value and veracity of such shall one day vindicate and virtuous. Verily, this vichyssoise of verbiage veers most verbose, so let me simply add that it's my very good honor to meet you, and you may call me V.
Are you like a crazy person?
Okay, so what do we notice about the words that we see in that clip? Anybody want to jump in? Okay, well, they're all using the same sound at the beginning, right? This is an example of alliteration, what that looks like. So alliteration, if you look at while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, you see the N sound repeating at the beginning of those words. The definition of alliteration is the use of the same sound or letter at the beginning of words in a sentence or a poem. So we can focus on some examples of sound, although I'm going to skip over this video here so we can keep us moving. But onomatopoeia actually also has to do with sound. So looking at the following video, you're going to pay attention to the graphic words that are going to appear on the screen. Okay, so what do we notice about the sounds of the words? And we notice that, well, these are examples of onomatopoeia. We'll talk about what that means. So onomatopoeia, if you're looking at these in green here, sorry, I don't know why it keeps doing that. Shrill, muttered, muttering, grumbling, grumbling, rumbling. These are all sound words, right? Definition of onomatopoeia is just words that recreate a sound. So it's like the written down version of sounds. This is super popular in comic books. So if you ever read comic books or graphic novels, you probably have seen a lot of onomatopoeia because they try to make sure that you can read the sounds of like fights happening or things like that. So examples of onomatopoeia does not just have to be in comic books. So it could be animal sounds like bark, meow. It could be fast motion sounds, fighting sounds. It could be just food sounds, like when someone's eating and you're writing. It could be also mechanical sounds. The next thing is hyperbole. So some examples of hyperbole are, hyperbole is without a doubt the single greatest thing in the history of the universe. The definition of hyperbole is just exaggerated language. The prefix hyper means excessive. If you've ever read Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day, that is a really good example of hyperbole. Hyperbole, this book that, you know, he keeps telling what a terrible, horrible day he's having, even though it's not that bad. Saying I ate a mile-high ice cream cone when in reality it's just a couple scoops. Saying you caught the world's biggest fish when in reality it was just a tiny one. Okay, so hyperbole is just exaggeration. Personification is when you are looking at this here, you're going to notice the stuff in purple kind of goes together. So the moon gazed at my midnight labors while with unrelaxed and breathless eagerness I pursued nature to her hiding places. Personification is when you give human qualities to non-human objects. A lot of times you see this in scary stories when they're talking about like the clock watching you or the house having eyes or things like that, where you're taking something that doesn't have is not a human and making it have human qualities. The next thing is simile. And simile metaphors are similar, so we're going to talk about why they're different. There is a little clip here of Forrest Gump. I'm not going to make you watch it. If you've seen Forrest Gump, awesome. If you haven't seen Forrest Gump, you know, feel free to watch it. But if you have seen it, you're going to recognize a lot of the stuff that he says are similes. And these similes here, we're going to talk about some of them. So stupid is as stupid does is Forrest Gump. We was like peas and carrots. I can run like the wind blows. Life is like a box of chocolates. These are all similes from Forrest Gump. So another simile, if you're looking at T.S. Eliot, let us go then you and I when the evening is spread out against the sky like a patient etherized upon a table. So the evening is like a patient. So the definition is a way of comparing two things using words like and as, or like or as really. You don't have to use both. So when you're looking at this, you see the word like here, and then when you're looking at all of these with Forrest, you see as, like, if I could get this, like is down here too. So that is the big difference between similes and metaphors. A metaphor, the definition, is a way of comparing two things by stating that one thing is the other. So you're also comparing, but you do not use the words like or as. A metaphor can be a comparison of two things. It could be a statement that one thing is the other. It could be an indirect suggestion of a similarity. So we're going to skip that video also. Metaphors when you're looking at the stuff in red here. The greater part of the untested men appeared quiet and absorbed. They were going to look at the war, the red animal, the blood-swollen god. So it's calling war these things, but it's not saying it's like them. It's just saying it is. And then this is an example of a metaphor too here.
You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. You ain't nothing but a hound dog.
All right, we'll keep going. So saying, you are a hound dog. He's not saying you are like a hound dog. He's just saying that you are a hound dog. Okay, so looking now, that is the figurative language aspect of this assignment. Then you're also going to have to talk about connotation and denotation. So looking at connotation and denotation, if you look at these two different options, option A says, for rent, this tiny old place has bland painted walls and a cement pad for the backyard. Cheap place that needs lots of work. Or if you say option B, for rent, this cozy vintage home has neutral toned walls and an easy to care for yard. Bargain priced fixer-upper. So obviously option B sounds a lot better, even though both of these things technically mean the same thing. It's all about connotation. Okay, so the objective of what we're looking at here is distinguishing between connotations or associations of words with similar denotations or definitions. So the definition of denotation is a word's dictionary definition. If you look it up in the dictionary, what is it going to say that word means? Whereas a connotation is the feelings and ideas that are associated with that word. So how does it make you feel? A word's connotation can either be positive, negative, or neutral. So being on the track team has made Alan slender and lean. Slender and lean has a pretty positive connotation. It makes you think in a positive way. Oops, sorry. Oh, spoiler, huh? Sorry, guys. So the next one, being on the track team has made Alan thin. Thin is neutral. It doesn't really make you think like, oh, this is good or this is bad. It's just thin. And then being on the track team has made Alan skinny and scrawny. Skinny and scrawny are pretty negative words. You don't really want to be called skinny and scrawny. So lazy, and we want to jump into, I think this is positive, negative, or neutral. Okay, I'd say this is pretty negative, right? The next one is bright. If you're calling somebody bright, that's usually a pretty positive. Fake is usually pretty negative. If you're calling that somebody that. Strength is usually a pretty positive thing. So looking at the words, denotation is a dictionary definition. Again, connotation is how you're feeling about it. So if you say, I noticed the sign in the window, or I spied the sign in the window, saying notice means that you're not really looking for it. It's a little bit more positive, right? It's just like, oh, I found the sign in the window. If you say you spied something, it makes you sound a little bit sneakier, right? Like you're trying to do something without being seen. So the following words all have similar denotations or definitions, but very different connotations. So when you are writing, you want to choose the right word with the best connotation that turns your good writing into great writing. That doesn't mean they always have to be positive connotations. Okay, so if you're looking at eats, you can say devours, nibbles, snacks, dines, gorges. They all mean the same thing, but they're different words with different connotations, depending on what you're trying to say, right? Like devour means to, where is it? Consume completely, starvingly, gulp down, or eat something whole. But that doesn't have to necessarily be the right word. If you're trying to say cry, you could say sniffle, tear up, sob, or bawl, and that just depends on what you're trying to make your reader feel. The same with scare. You could say shock, intimidate, startle, panic, or terrify. So when you are looking and reading, you want to look at word choice from the author so that you can totally understand what is the author trying to make you think or feel. Why did the author choose those words, and what connotations are they trying to give you as the reader? When you're writing, this is more important for me, is that when you're writing, you need to use precise language to evoke the concepts, feelings, and meanings you want. So as your English teacher, I want you to focus on your writing. And obviously, you're going to be doing reading in English too. But I look at your writing, and when you are, using different connotations with your words that make the writing even better, that's a positive thing to do. That's good. Okay. Hopping back over here. Assignment 4.2.1 is a figurative language and connotation. Strategies that you would have for completing this assignment. If you are struggling with it, I would really suggest taking notes first. I should have put that first, really. Taking notes on what those things mean. But then I would also write down all of the options that you have in the assignment and then cross them out as you go so that you don't, accidentally try to do one twice or mess those up. That way, that is a really good strategy if you have like a long list, because that assignment has, a lot of figurative language all at one time. So that is a good thing to do if you are struggling. Okay. Anybody have questions so far on what we've talked about? Or anything in English, really? Papers, essays? Not sure how something works. All right. Well, we'll keep going. And if you guys do have any questions, please just pop back in and I'd be happy to help you. Okay, the last thing we're going to talk about is types of sentences. So we are going to look at simple, compound, complex, and compound complex sentences, which sounds like ridiculously complicated, but it's really not once you kind of break them down. You want to use different variety when you're writing. You want to use simple sentences to communicate clearly or express an important point. You want to use compound sentences to add detail or further justification. You can use complex sentences to form relationships between 2 points. And you can use compound complex sentences to add variation and sentence detail and length. So the types of sentences come from combinations of independent and dependent clauses. Independent clauses are clauses with a subject and a verb that express a complete thought. So saying Jen visited various universities is a whole thought by itself. It has a subject, Jen, it has a verb, visited, and it's a whole thing by itself. A dependent clause means that it's a clause with a subject and a verb, but it doesn't give you a whole thought by itself. It usually has words that make it dependent, like after, when, that, while, or because. When Jen visited various universities. If you take out the when, it's a total complete clause. But if you put that in there, you now have to finish it. When Jen visited universities, like what happened? While Jen is trying to figure out her university choice, what's going on, right? You have to finish those sentences. So those are dependent clauses. So there are several types of sentences. A simple sentence is a sentence with one independent clause and no dependent clauses. So Rob wants to go to Queen's University is a simple sentence. It can have compound words or phrases. It can have multiple subjects, objects, and verbs. So Mark and Susie, right? 2 subjects want to go to the university together. Still a simple sentence. Brooke cannot decide between Queen's University or Western University. Multiple objects, but still a simple sentence. Jacob visited McMaster and learned more about the program. So visited and learned, 2 verbs, but still a simple sentence. Compound sentences are a sentence with with multiple independent clauses and no dependent clauses. They are often combined with a comma and a coordinating conjunction like and or but. So saying Teresa loves the campus life at Western and Tom loves the business program, and, right, it's a compound. Saying Mr. Simpson thinks that Camilla should pursue English and her parents agree. So those 2 sentences by themselves would be fine, but you can also, hello, Che, but you can also separate them and they would be simple sentences by themselves. Complex sentences are sentences with one independent clause and at least one dependent clause. You could have more than one dependent clause, but it has to be one independent and dependent. After Faith visited Concordia University, she decided it was a perfect fit. So she decided it was the perfect fit is a simple sentence by itself, but after Faith visited Concordia University is a dependent clause. So that makes it a complex. Oops, sorry, skipped one. Ian couldn't believe the size of the lecture halls when he saw them. Okay. So Ian couldn't believe the size of the lecture halls is fine by itself. When he saw them, right, makes it dependent. Compound complex sentences. A sentence with multiple independent clauses and at least one dependent clause. It could have more, but it has to have at least one. So you're going to have multiple independent is the main thing here, and then however many dependent clauses is fine. Sabrina wants to join the soccer team and Kathy wants to join the swimming team. So that is compound right there, right? This happens, it's by itself, and this other full sentence happens. But then you're adding on, although they are both worried they won't see each other enough, which is a dependent clause. So that makes it complex, right? I'm sorry, that makes it compound complex. While her mother is worried sick, Carolyn can't wait to get out of the house and she can almost taste her freedom. So Carolyn can't wait to get out of the house is a full independent clause. She can almost taste her freedom as a full independent clause. Together, those are compound. Add an independent, and it's complex compound. Okay, so we're going to look at a few different sentences and figure out if they are simple, compound, complex, or compound complex. And you can just type answers in the chat box if you want to, if you have a guess here for each one. So question 1, Juliet asked her guidance counselor about scholarships, and she told Juliet about many different options. Does anybody have what they think that would be? Okay, so that is a compound sentence. That's showing you, two different full sentences joined by and. The next one, Jessica's parents gave her a dog when she was 14, and now she wants to bring it with her to university. Saying now she wants to bring it with her to university, right? Jessica's parents gave her a dog when she was 14. This is a full dependent sentence, but this is a compound complex here together with those two together. Question 3, Joan is uneasy about the endless possibilities of university programs. And this is a simple sentence. This is just one sentence by itself. One independent clause by itself. Question 4, after Penelope realized her twin was going to Harvard, she changed her mind to go to Princeton. So this is complex because this is giving you a dependent clause with an independent clause. And then question 5, all of the grade 12s at St. Clement's School are working hard to apply to university, and they are excited to receive acceptances from universities. Those are two independent sentences together, independent clauses, so that is a compound sentence. Those are the resources for this. And I'm gonna hop back over here. Okay, so when you're looking at the assignment 4.5.2, you're gonna have to decide what types of sentences you are actually reading. A good way to do it is to just take quick notes on the sentence types. You can go back to the Prezi we just did. You can look at the videos that are in the assignments that you have on Buzz. So you can do that however you want to, but it's really helpful to take notes so that when you're going through and looking at the question, the sentences, you can kind of break them apart and decide what pieces do you have, and if you have those specific pieces, what does that make that type of sentence? All right.